So, you've probably heard the term DevOps thrown around a million times, right? But what does it actually mean? Is it just a buzzword, a job title, some fancy new tool? Well, today, let's cut through the noise and figure out what DevOps is really. To really get DevOps, you gotta go back to the problem it was born to solve. See, in the old world, you basically had two teams with completely opposite goals. On one side, you have the developers. Their job, their whole incentive, was to create and ship new features as fast as humanly possible. But on the other side, you had the operations team, and they were rewarded for the exact opposite, keeping everything stable, locked down, and making sure nothing ever broke. You can already feel the friction there, can't you?
And that friction, that natural tension, it created something the industry started calling the wall of confusion. Now, obviously, this wasn't a physical wall, but it might as well have been. It was a massive barrier built out of different goals, different tools, and honestly, just a total lack of communication between the people building the software and the people responsible for running it.
And this quote just nails it. This is exactly what it felt like. Developers would finish their code, bundle it up, and just kind of chuck it over this invisible wall. Then, when something inevitably broke in production, and trust me, it did, the blame game would begin. Ops would blame the developers for shipping buggy code. Developers would blame ops for having a fragile, broken environment. The end result was always the same. Releases were slow, incredibly risky, and just plain stressful for everyone involved. So how do you fix that? How do you tear down that wall? Well, the answer isn't some new piece of software you can buy or a new department you can create. The answer is a pretty radical shift in thinking. At its very core, DevOps is a philosophy of collaboration. And this, right here, is probably the most important thing to understand. Before it's anything else, a tool, a job, a process, DevOps is a cultural change. It's all about demolishing those silos. It's about getting development and operations to play for the same team with the same goals, sharing responsibility for a product from the very first line of code all the way to the day it's retired. So what does that cultural shift actually look like? Well, it's about moving from finger-pointing in separate silos to having a shared sense of ownership. It's about stopping tiny, isolated fixes and starting to think about the health of the entire system. And maybe most importantly, it's about changing how you think about failure. Instead of being this terrifying thing you punish people for, failure becomes one of your most valuable learning opportunities, a chance to make the whole system stronger. Okay, so a philosophy of collaboration sounds really nice, but how do you actually do it? How does it work in the real world? Let's take a look at the guiding principles that turn this philosophy into a practical reality. These are basically the pillars that hold up the whole DevOps structure. The big idea here is to automate all the repetitive, manual tasks that humans are kind of bad at so they can focus on the creative stuff they're good at. You build this automated superhighway to get code out the door. You start treating your servers and networks just like you treat your software, as code. And you measure everything so you can see what's working and learn from it. So let's zoom in on CI/CD, which stands for continuous integration and continuous delivery. This is that superhighway to production. It works like this. A developer writes some code and commits their change. The moment they do, an automated system just wakes up. It builds the software and runs a whole bunch of tests automatically. And if, and only if, all those tests pass, that change is immediately ready to be released to customers with just the push of a button. It completely removes those old manual bottlenecks. And here's another absolute game changer. Infrastructure as code. The old way was just painful. You'd manually log into a server, click around, type some commands, and pray you didn't make a typo. The new way? You just write code that describes exactly how your servers, your networks, and your whole environment should look. This means you can build and destroy entire environments automatically, consistently, and reliably, every single time. It's repeatable, it's testable, and it's a lifesaver. All right, so does all this philosophy and automation, actually work? Does it produce real, measurable results? The answer is a resounding yes. And the cool part is, we don't have to guess what to measure. The industry has really zeroed in on a few key metrics that prove the impact. These are called the DORA metrics. They come from years of research done by the DevOps Research and Assessment Group, and they've basically become the gold standard for measuring engineering performance. And what's so fascinating is they prove that you don't have to trade speed for stability. The top-performing teams are the best at both. Let's break them down. The first key metric is lead time for changes. This is simple. How long does it take from the moment a developer commits a line of code to that code actually running in production, providing value? For low-performing teams, this can be weeks, even months. But for the elite teams, it's measured in hours. Just think about that. An engineer has an idea in the morning and can see it live, helping customers that very same day. It's incredibly powerful.
Next up, deployment frequency. How often is the team actually pushing new code to production? A lot of organizations still do this maybe once a month in these huge, terrifying, risky batches. Elite DevOps teams, on the other hand, are deploying multiple times per day. By releasing in tiny little chunks, they actually make the whole process less risky and far more stable. But of course, speed means nothing if the system is always down. So what happens when something does go wrong? That's where mean time to recovery comes in. When there's an outage, how fast can you restore service? For the best of the best, it's less than 1 hour. They have the automation and the processes to find and fix problems at lightning speed. And the final metric that ties it all together is the change failure rate. Out of all those deployments you're pushing, what percentage of them cause a problem? Now, you'd think that deploying multiple times a day would mean more failures, but the data proves the exact opposite. Elite teams have a failure rate of less than 15%. This is the ultimate proof that in the world of DevOps, speed and quality aren't enemies. They actually feed each other. Now, hitting those kinds of numbers is amazing, but it's so important to understand that DevOps isn't a project you finish. You don't just install DevOps one day and then you're done. It's a process of constant learning and continuous improvement.
This quote just says it all, doesn't it? The real goal isn't to arrive at some perfect final state called DevOps. The goal is to build a culture where you're always trying to get a little bit better, a little faster, and a little bit safer, day after day. And that journey is always evolving. These core ideas of collaboration and automation are constantly expanding. Now we talk about DevSecOps, which is about weaving security into the entire process, not just bolting it on at the end. We have GitOps, which uses code repositories to manage everything. We have platform engineering and even AIOps, which uses artificial intelligence to help out. The field is always growing.
So, as we wrap this up, I want to leave you with one final question to think about. Look at your own organization, at how your teams work. Are they building walls between each other, operating in silos and throwing things over? Or are they building bridges? Bridges of collaboration, of shared goals, and of trust. Because at the end of the day, that's what DevOps really is. It's the art and science of building bridges.